I hope you enjoyed that intro. It's more of a joke than anything, but it does segue into the topic at hand here. With the direction Tekken 8 is going, it's looking quite clear that techniques that are difficult to perform don't really have a place in modern Tekken games. So on one side, you have the players who justifiably admonish Tekken 8 for making advanced character tech easier across the board for some reason. And on the other side, you have the predominantly newer players who accuse the first guys of gatekeeping and elitism. So as always, in order to give more insight into the debate, here's a few ways some characters held their pilots to a higher standard in older Tekken games compared to now. And also why I think giving characters difficult stuff to do is actually better for everyone involved, both for the player doing the technique and the player on the receiving end too. Also, keep in mind, I'll be talking about character-specific techniques, not to be confused with character weaknesses, which are a much more important topic in my opinion, like for example the dev team wanting to buff Kazuya's tracking multiple times and only reverting the changes after the community's backlash. At least with the character identity problem, I feel like everyone agrees that every character being able to do everything is just stupid, so there isn't much debate there. But the topic at hand here is stuff that is difficult to do with specific characters. So let's talk about a change that actually affected everyone to varying degrees. It is the change to the instant while running leniency. In Tekken 8, if you press 3 forwards in front of the opponent, you will actually start running in front of them. But if you go on any other Tekken and press forward, however, you don't run, you just walk forward as if you didn't dash beforehand. So you might think it's impossible to do while running moves at range 0, but as you can see, it is very possible to do, it is doable. You can do instant while running moves in these games. But here's where the difficulty comes in actually. It was a just frame, an actual just frame. You had to press forward, really quick, and on the third forward, you had to press the button exactly on the second frame of that forward. Not the first frame because that would be too simple, right? And not the third frame either because that's too easy. It had to be on the second frame of forward, or else you just get another move. Now, thankfully, this only applied to range 0. The further you were from your opponents, the easier it was to do, so it was a just frame at range 0, a bit less difficult at range 1, even more lenient at range 2, and so on and so forth, which was really cool. So all characters were affected by this since everyone had at least one while running move, right? Some of them were ass, so it didn't really matter whether or not they had access to instant while running moves, but on the other side of the spectrum, you had characters like Claudio, who has a really good running too, or the Kings, who relied on instant Shining Wizard to threaten the opponent with a true grab mix-up between Giant and Shining, right? But perhaps the most important example of this is Dragunov with his running too. Now, if you go on T8, every Dragunov can spam this with their eyes closed because the while running window is so big. But in any other Tekken, if they tried it, they would get forward too more often than not. And that's why players like JDCR looked so cool doing it, right? He would do instant while running 2 point blank like it was nothing. And back then, since it was +5 instead of the +3 that he has now, it was even scarier than it is now, while still being a counter hit launcher. So to balance this back in the day, the dev team used the secret technique that they wouldn't dare to use again actually. That is, giving the launcher a difficult conversion, which is our next topic. So using the same example, which is Dragunov running 2, before Tekken 7, so Tekken 6 and Tag 2, if you got a counter hit with that move, you had two options actually. You had the pussy ass bitch route, which gave a mini combo with down 2 while standing 4, down 4, 1, 3, or if you were actually good, you could go for an instant while standing 4 to convert into a full combo, as you can see on the screen, which wasn't even that difficult to do. It took a very reasonable amount of practice to get down, which is important for the points that I'm going to make later on. But another example of this is Lee's 1+2, the homing mid that has good frames all around. So before he got his new-ish back 3-3, this was his old back 3-4. So not only was he not able to combo off of down 3 on counter hit, but if he wanted to launch off of counter hit 1+2, he actually had to put in a little bit of effort. I know, it sounds crazy when you look at his design changes in the recent years. But back then, if he got a 1+2 counter hit, he had to do 1+2 micro dash down forward 4 into forward 4-3, which is again not that difficult. It was just hard enough that you could maybe drop it in a clutch scenario like the last round of a promo match, for example, or a tournament set. But if we go on the opposite side of the difficulty spectrum, we can talk about Leo's up forward to 1 into while standing 3, which is a 1-frame link if I'm not mistaken, and this is one of the few very difficult conversions that still exist in Tekken. So in an effort to make everything easier in Tekken 8 as they like to do, you can now use Heat Burst for an easy combo off of up forward to 1. And you can use it every round, and so the difficult route just becomes kind of obsolete, or at least way more situational, right? But the last example of this, which I can never wrap my head around, is Steve down forward 2, because hear me out, since Tag 2 to now, which is Tekken 8 Season 3, it went from being a very easy but somewhat inconsistent launcher to being a very easy and consistent launcher to having a very difficult conversion with the Shiro combo, and then they took it away completely for some reason, and then they gave him an even harder combo with in Season 2 with full crouch down forward 2, which is as difficult as down forward 2 perfect electric with Kazuya. And so I'm inclined to believe that they didn't even do it on purpose. They just gave him a substitute to Kazuya down forward 2 perfect electric on accident. But if they did do it on purpose, then kudos to them. It might be one of those famous steps in the right direction. And if that's the case, then why just Steve? Why not give other characters new difficult conversions? Those would be welcome. So at this point, I doubt anyone knows what the devs want to do with Steve, not even the devs themselves really. But what I am sure of is that they are slowly phasing out difficult conversions from Tekken, which is sad because using difficulty as a balancing tool is really cool. If something is strong, make it difficult. If it doesn't have to be jet upper levels of difficult, right? As we've seen with Dragunov running 2, it's not really that difficult. And if you want to make something borderline OP, then make it so hard that even the best players in the world can, they have a pretty high chance of dropping it, just like Leo up forward to 1. Also, if you want to make everyone happy, just skip the easy mode mini combo, as you can see right now, and now you have something for everyone, whatever the skill level, and that's how I see it at least. Another point which is very important, but won't take much time because it's so simple, is giving characters free just frames in heat. Now to my knowledge, that's everyone with an electric and Lee. So all Mishimas, even Reina and Jin, when they are in heat, they have access to free electrics. And you have no idea how jarring it is to see a Mishima player do the longest crouch dash in the book and still getting an electric afterwards without the just frame. And here you can see old and new philosophies clashing actually, because okay, these characters are built around doing this tricky move on command for keep out or with punishment, right? But you have this new heat mechanic that's supposed to highlight the character's strengths. So in their infinite wisdom, in order to improve the Mishima's strengths in heat, they made the electrics not just easier to do, but impossible to mess up if you know what you're doing. So in my opinion, there is no better testament to the fact that input difficulty is getting removed than making the just frame unmissable up to 9 whopping times if you have the full heat bar with a heat engager, for example. It is mostly the same with Lee too, except that if he does the just frame correctly, he gets some heat back, which is another can of worms that shouldn't be opened for the sake of this video's duration. So you can see the same phenomenon here. This character that is known for just frames among other stuff, is getting his hard but rewarding tools made easier with heat, which is a travesty because it further undermines the idea of using difficulty to balance strong tools, which was so prominent in the older Tekken games. Another way in which difficulty is getting left out as a balancing mechanic, which is nowhere near as blatant as making the instance while running window gigantic as we've seen, or giving characters a new move to specifically launch off of a previously difficult conversion. This one concerns combos and more specifically wall carry, because it doesn't change much from one season to another, or from one game to another. It's a very slow change that spans multiple seasons and multiple games, so here's how it kinda goes. First off, you have the characters that have really good damage and wall carry, albeit locked behind execution and the risk of dropping the combo. And you also have the characters with mediocre combo potential, right? Now, as part of the power creep, the guys with the relatively bad combo tools get new moves to help with their damage output and wall carry, and this happens very slowly, like one new move this season, a new extension the other season, right? It happens like very slowly, one move at a time. But in order to keep the characters that already had good damage and wall travel in that top spot, we have to give them new moves and new combo routes to keep them in the highest tier of wall carry and combo damage, which are of course going to be easy because they think putting difficult things into the game is bad. And so the hard combo tools are now useless because the new routes are both stronger and easier than the former, so why even bother with those in the first place? And you can see this in many examples, like Lee for example, where his back 2 loops became irrelevant due to all the buffs to his other combo tools, like back 2 for 3 for example, or Nina with her butterfly loops, which were very cool, not only visually, but also because you had many ways to do it. You had the down, down forward, neutral one way of doing it, or the way I know how to do it personally, you can do it with quarter circle forward into upward one, as you can see like in the command history. And there's a lot of other examples too, like Leo and Dragunov's max wall carry combos, which have lost sauce more than anything, but they've also become easier to do. Speaking of sauce, the last aspect and the most insulting aspect of difficulty getting removed from Tekken is advanced tech. So things like Zen cancels and of course DSS, alongside other less known things like King's Wave Dash. And why I think they're insulting is that they outright remove these things from the game. So instead of making them obsolete, like difficult conversions, or making them easier in heat, like the just frames we've seen, they just remove it completely from the game, so you can't even do it for style points if you wanted. So looking at things like Jin's Zen cancels mainly from forward 4, which was done by doing forward 4, going into Zen with forward, transitioning to a crouch dash, and then blocking immediately after it, which Jin players had to do to get every time if they pressed forward 4, if they wanted to get a reliable combo off of counter hits forward 4. However, if they were too slow on the cancel, they would get clipped by a quick mid. But even outside of making the move safe, while granting a full launch, it had other uses, such as in combos. So his best tag assault's wall filler was forward 4, Zen cancel into down back 2-2-3, which is hard to do consistently. But even if you ignore the tag assaults, like the combo aspect of it, just doing Zen cancels to make forward 4 safe was technical enough on its own. Another example of this, and perhaps the most popular example on this list, is the DSS change on Law. Everyone and their grandma at this point has heard of this change, but it has to be talked about, because the whole thing about DSS is that it used to be anywhere from tedious to do to extremely hard, depending on what you were using it for. An example of the latter would be while standing for into 3+4 in Tekken 7, which was an 11-frame counter-hit launcher. But no one complained about this because it was incredibly hard to do, and this is what I mean when I talk about difficulty as a balancing tool. But you don't even have to go to that extreme. Just the mundane DSS stuff, like to keep loss pressure going, was hella tedious to do. Like you had to do back, neutral, forward every time you wanted to do DSS, which wasn't always airtight actually, meaning that the law player could get counter hits out of it if they weren't quick enough, which used to happen sometimes, but it will literally never happen in Tekken 8 because not only is it a simple forward input now, but it's bufferable. You can buffer both the stance and like the move out of that stance before the transition even comes out, which makes it rather so that you can basically never mess it up, which is really bad because having difficult things to do in Tekken is good for everyone, as I am going to try to prove in the next part. So a very popular argument in favor of difficulty in this game is that, hard things should exist in Tekken because that's how it always was and that's how it always should be, which is stupid because it boils down to this thing is good because it inherently just is. It's a terrible argument. Of course it's gonna be seen as gatekeeping and elitism. So here's my argument, an argument that should make everyone happy. Let's paint a picture, okay? Imagine a world where Dragunov, which is top 3 right now in Season 3 of Tekken 8, is pressuring you. But when he does running 2, he has a 1 in 3 chance of messing it up and losing his turn with forward 2 instead of being +3 at best and counter hit launching you at worst. But even if he does get a counter hit, imagine if instead of getting a combo every time, he would sometimes mess it up and end up looking like a dumbass instead of going for an easy mode mini combo, right? Same thing for Leo and Lee and Steve, who have the goal to try launching you from a safe, from a quick or homing safe mid. They should run the risk of dropping the combo, they always should. You guys have no idea how big the grin across my face can get when I play against a Jin that does forward 4, but they let go of down forward a frame too early, so now they're stuck in Zen looking like a dumb fuck, waiting to get mid-checked or even launched. Do you guys have any idea, since DSS became a thing, how many laws pressed the second forward too early, so now they lost their turn, dancing away while giving away the +4 or +7 or +11 or whatever that they could have had if they done DSS correctly. And here this is the best part about all of this. They have consented to this. By virtue of playing those characters, they basically agree to the fact that they will mess some stuff up, either a fraction of the time or most of the time, depending on what they tried. So while they are happy doing the stuff that they think is cool, you, the opponents, are getting your turn back, for example, or you're tech rolling away from combos that could have killed you. So on the receiving end of the character difficulty, you are directly benefiting from how hard some things are in Tekken, right? Everyone benefits from this. So that's my 2 cents about the topic. I think having hard things like difficult conversions in the game are good for everyone playing, because the person doing them obviously likes doing them as displayed by their habits, and even the person on the receiving end are benefiting from it by for example combo drops, or the person doing the techniques losing their turn or losing pressure or whatever, you know, everyone is winning. And it doesn't even have to be static. If the devs are responsive and competent, which we know they aren't, they can make something easier if it's not good enough, or they can make something harder if the reward is too big. There's a lot of stuff that could be done in that aspect, which I believe is unique to fighting games, so it is quite a shame seeing difficulty get slowly phased out over time from this genre, right? Anyway, that's all I have for now. Actually, I'd like to hear your thoughts about it. Like, do you personally believe having like difficult sequences is a good thing for the game, or is it a bad thing for the game? I obviously think it's good because I believe everyone benefits from it. But yeah, I'd like to hear your thoughts about it. Please leave them in the comments below. And yeah, please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed the video. Those would help me a great deal. And yeah, this has been Magician. Take care of yourself and have a good one.